boring exploit that cuts off entire possibility spaces from ever arising. There's so much we will never get to see because of this pest. They chewed at their cracked lip, which only existed because this is... Hey peeps, FA here. I wanted to make a Destiny 2 lore video on the title of Destiny's last expansion in the Light and Dark saga, this title being The Final Shape. I feel that people are misinterpreting the meaning of the title and what the Final Shape exactly is. In this video, I will examine the different nuances of what the Final Shape means and how it ties into the conflict between the light and dark, and the nature of Destiny's universe as a whole. At this time, there's very little lore on what the Final Shape exactly is. Because of this, I very well could be wrong in my interpretations. More lore on the topic could come at the end of the season of The Lost, or during Witch Queen. Everything I'm about to use as a source also could change with more context. With everything in Destiny's lore, there can be a lot of interpretation until Bungie outright states a fact or gives more context. Once again, this means that I could well be wrong in my interpretations in this video. I still think, though, that discussing the ideas I'll be presenting will help people better understand and interpret the lore for later discussions. For those of you who have come for a simple answer to what the Final Shape is, here is my answer. The Final Shape is the Darkness's ultimate endgame plan, or, more broadly, what the Darkness views as the ultimate form of the universe. The lore entry, The Final Shape, from the Book of Unveiling, is what gives us this answer. In the lore entry, the Gardener, or the Light and Traveler if you would, are playing the flower game with the Winnower, or the Darkness. The game is based on John Conway's Game of Life. For a better explanation of how the game works and its intricacies, the YouTube channel Veritasium has a video detailing how the Game of Life is unsolvable. As well, the YouTube channel Numberphile has an amazing video interviewing the late John Conway. Links to both that interview and Veritasium's video can be found in the description below. The entry reads as follows. It always ends the same, the gardener complained. This one stupid pattern. Aren't they beautiful, I asked, as the flowers opened and closed in patterns beyond the scope of entire universes to encode, all devouring and perhaps everlasting. Not even we could know whether a pattern in the flowers would cycle forever or halt someday. They're as dull as carbon monoxide poisoning. The gardener groused, although carbon monoxide did not yet exist, and neither did anything that could be poisoned. The gardener kneeled to flick a patch of sod with their trowel. It struck an open flower, causing it to shut. Although I was the closer of flowers, and that was my sole purpose, I felt no fear or jealousy. We had our assigned domains, and always would. They're majestic, I said. They have no purpose except to subsume all other purposes. There is nothing at the center of them except the will to go on existing, to alter the game to suit their existence. They spare not one sliver of totality for any other work. They are the end. The pattern corrected the errant flower effortlessly. The great flow went on unchanged. The gardener got up and brushed their knees. Every game we play, this one pattern consumes all the others. Wipes out every interesting development. A stupid, boring exploit that cuts off entire possibility spaces from ever arising. There's so much we will never get to see because of this pest. They chewed at their cracked lip, which only existed because this is an allegory. I'm going to do something about it, they said. We need a new rule. The lore entry we just read paints a picture of the light and dark watching over a simple game of flowers growing and dying ad infinitum. The final shape being the pattern that continuously formed again and again within the game, bringing it to a conclusion every time. We can say this because of the gardener saying, every game we play, implying there has been many games played before. The gardener got fed up with the repeating pattern, the final shape, and wanted to change the game. Case closed, right? Not so fast. We must remember that this is just a story being told by the darkness to us to understand it in incomprehensible place, time, and space. A story for us physical beings to understand that which is incompatible and incomprehensible to us. As I will explain later, this is in existence before the creation of our universe and ties into the nature of the light and dark. We now must ask ourselves, with the light changing the rules of the flower game, did the nature of the final shape change as well? To examine if there was any change in the final shape, we must look backwards in the history of Destiny, back to the lore found within the Taken King, within the Books of Sorrow. References to the final shape are found within a few entries in the Books of Sorrow. When quoting these entries, I will refer to them as a verse and then a number. This is because the real entry numbers used are Roman numerals, but this can be kind of confusing to keep track of. In verse 3.3, Oryx defines the final shape as a fire without fuel, burning forever, killing death, asking a question that is its own answer, eternity itself. That is what we must become. From this quote, we can see that not much has truly changed in regards to the final shape. An unending fire burning forever is not too dissimilar to an unending pattern, reforming and reconstituting. However, there is more to this, as we can see in the same verse. Oryx writes the following just before the previous quote. Scoured them away and left the universe clean, ready to move forward towards its final shape. This quote is referencing Oryx destroying the Kyugyu species. But what is interesting here is the rhetoric of a clean universe ready for the final shape. This is echoed in verse 2.9. Their golden age was a cancer. They did nothing to advance the cause of life. They burnt up time and matter and thought on this solipsistic, onanistic pursuit of safety, insulating themselves from death, making a regressive pocket of useless stability, when they could have helped whittle the universe towards its final, perfect form. In this quote, an unnamed hive worm god speaks to Oryx, then Aryx, about the blight the light has brought to the universe, as it is referenced as a cancer. But again, the rhetoric used is of a universe that needs to be changed from its current state. From these two quotes, we can see the hive, and by extension, the sword logic, are not the final shape, but instead a means to bring about the final shape. A thing we clearly see, as of this recording, as something Savathun wishes to break away from. To bring about the final shape is not the same as to become the final shape. To recap what we've just discussed so far, the final shape in its purest form is a repeating pattern of the flower game between the light and darkness. The hive, worm gods, and sword logic are just tools to bring about the final shape, not a part of it. Because of this, we cannot yet say the nature of the final shape did not change. But here's another question that may lead us to the answer for the previous one. What is the pattern of the final shape, and what does it represent? Previously, many people have conjectured that in the flower game, the flowers represent life, universes, species, all other sorts of various things. Instead, I propose that the pattern in the flowers themselves represent life forms, not the flowers. The gardener wants more complex patterns, or in this case life forms, to form within the garden, not just the simple repeating pattern that always concluded the game. We can see this in the previously read unveiling entry, the final shape. Likewise, the winnower finds the repeating pattern, the final shape, to be beautiful. We will return to this idea, but for now, keep it in your mind. Now let's continue with our thought on the pattern. This pattern that keeps reforming repeatedly is a single life form, and what could this life form be? To answer this, we can read the lore entry Patternfall, also from the Book of Unveiling. The patterns that escaped the garden landed in the water. Of course, there was no water at first. The patterns were abstract waves tumbling through the fire of the early universe, trapped in chaos, cycling through desperate self-preservation, tautologies, while vast beings from beyond the narrow domain of cause and effect thrashed and battled around them. For an eon, They were nothing but screaming equation vermin scurrying through the quantum foam, fleeing ultimate erasure. But they were tenacious. They propagated in the saline, melted water of comets orbiting the first stars. That broth of chemicals became their substrate, and they learned to catalyze impossible chemistry with quantum tricks. Then they rained from the skies into the screaming seas of foul worlds, and there they built their first housings from geometry and silica. In all their transformations, they retained that kernel of ultimate self-sufficiency that had made them victors in the flower game. But they are not incontrovertibly destined to rule the cosmos. They were made before light and darkness, but the rules are different now, and even this pattern must adapt. They are not all mine, not in the way that admirers such as my man Oryx are mine, utterly devoted to the practice of my principle, but some of them have, nevertheless, found their way home. As the darkness says here, this pattern that fled the garden, escaped the battles between the light and darkness in the early universe, was the original repeated victor of the original flower game. They were tenacious and contained ultimate self-preservation that led them to always dominating the game. This final shape, the repeating pattern loved by the darkness and hated by the gardener, was the Vex. We can for certain declare the Vex to be this pattern, because of the words used to describe them. Propagating in saline water, quantum foam, equation vermin, and quantum tricks are all words that have been or can be used to describe how the Vex function. In this way, the final shape or pattern is the Vex. But as the darkness says, the Vex must adapt to the new rules of this new flower game, as they are no longer destined to rule the game. They are no longer the preferred, unending pattern that once reigned supreme in the original flower game. With this, we can now say the following. The final shape is what the darkness views to be the final ultimate life form in the universe. The hive and worm gods are just tools being used by the darkness to change the universe and create this perfect light form, and not actually a part of it. The Vex are the original final shape, but are no longer concretely seen as such anymore by the darkness. Now then, how does this all relate to the nature of the light and dark? From all the lore entries, discussion, and argument I've put forward, I hope you now have come to see the light and dark are still playing their flower game. The rules have changed, but the player's goals have not. In all the quotes we've looked at, the Traveler has been seeking to find a balance in the game. It wishes to form what it describes as complexity and possibility within. The darkness wants only an undisputed repeated singular winner in their game. These are their own win conditions within the flower game. For the light to win, it needs only to subsist and continue. For the darkness, it needs totality to grind everything back to what once was perfect. This is why the Traveler continues to abandon the species it finds and blesses with its presence. It abandoned the Ammonites, the Elixni, and countless other civilizations. Why? Because it needs to continue to subsist. To prove that in the flower game, complexity can continue. To stand and fight when confronted by the darkness means there is a possibility it could lose. It cannot and will not let itself lose again like before, and so it flees. Of course, one can say that the Traveler finally stood its ground when it created the Guardians, but can we be so sure? The next expansion after Witch Queen will be the ominously named Lightfall. As well, we have seen the Traveler abandon humanity before in the Dark Future lore books. Inversely to the actions of the light, the darkness continues relentlessly to wipe life from the universe. Its absolute purpose is to bring about the perfect shape again within the flower game. To this end, it cannot accept a stalemate. To not fight means it cannot win the flower game, and thus the light wins. These beings care not for those of us within the game, but only that they prove their views of the game correct. The endless flower game will finally come to a conclusion with the expansion, the final shape. For Bungie have said it is the conclusion of the Light and Dark saga, which can only mean an end to the Flower game itself. Will the Light or Dark be victorious, or could there be a third possibility? Could we, as the Nine believe, transcend our design and prove both the Light and Dark wrong?
Light and dark? Heaven or hell? What's the difference?
Well, that's our question, you lunatic.
Wow. Thanks for watching till the end. This is a unscripted recording. Just wanted to say thank you for watching this video essay. This is my first time ever creating something like this, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And it really means a lot that you're watching till the very end. So I sincerely thank you for watching, and maybe you'll watch some of my other videos, or maybe my Twitch. But sincerely, thank you for watching.